Every year, countless people want to find morels, and every year, countless people don't find morels. If you are someone who cannot find these elusive fungi no matter how hard you try, or if you consider yourself an okay morel hunter and you're looking to improve your skills, then stay tuned, because what I'm going to do is share a list of 6 common reasons why people have trouble finding morel mushrooms. Now, before we get into the main topic, there are 3 things that I want to mention. Number 1, all the reasons that I'm about to discuss are listed in no particular order. So it's not like the first reason is the most important reason and the last one is not that big of a deal. They're all important. So I encourage you to consider and pay attention to all of them. Number 2, all the information that I'm about to discuss is based on my experiences hunting morels in the northeastern United States. Now, I know that plenty of generalizations can be made on the topic, but I really feel that a lot of advice on morel mushroom hunting can and should be regionally oriented. And I make no apologies for keeping the information in this video pretty local and specific, because it seems to me that most good things in life are both of those, local and specific. Having said that, even if you don't live anywhere near me, I know that you'll still learn something valuable after watching this video that you can implement into your morel mushroom hunting strategy. And at the very least, you can watch an informative video without being interrupted by senseless ads. And number 3, yes, I'm aware that morels are not technically considered to be mushrooms by people who care just a little too much about these things. Morels are ascomycetes, and these particular ascomycetes produce ascocarps with apothecia. But at the risk of sounding too pedantic, I'm just going to refer to morels as mushrooms in this video. So keeping those 3 points in mind, let's begin. The first reason you're not finding morels is that you're not looking hard enough. Yes, it could be as simple as that. So I want to share with you a piece of information that many successful morel hunters either don't admit, or they forget to admit, or they just brush it aside like it's no big deal. The people who find incredible numbers of morels every year, enough to fill their entire truck beds or enough to cover every square inch of their 12-foot long kitchen tables, and we've all seen these pictures online, these people owe their successes in many cases to either being gifted morel hotspots from their parents or grandparents or neighbors or close friends, or these people have spent a lot of time looking for morels over the years and they simply just return to productive hotspots every morel season. Now, if you're like me and you were not fortunate enough to have been let in on someone's secret spot, or if you became interested in mushroom hunting later in life, then you're going to have to put in a lot of time either making friends with generous people who will share their secret spots with you, or you're going to have to find these spots on your own. Now, of course, you can expedite this process by asking friends for tips, by browsing online forums and watching videos, and by attending walks hosted by mushroom clubs during the morel season. Keep in mind, however, that you must also actively look for morels on your own time as often as you can. There is no substitute for this. The more time you invest in the physical act of looking for morels, the more successful you will be in finding them. If you only look for morels on Saturdays during the morel season, that's good, but it's not as good as looking every Saturday and Monday. If you only look for morels every Saturday and Monday, that's good too, but it's not as good as looking every Saturday, Monday, and Thursday. Now, I understand you got priorities. You want to sleep in, maybe your favorite show is aired on Thursdays, and your friend's getting married on Saturday. But remember, many other mushroom hunters don't sleep in, they don't watch TV, and none of their friends are getting married. So don't be surprised when you see their truck beds and their kitchen tables overflowing with morels. Go out into the woods, spend lots of time looking, look some more, look even more, and repeat. The second reason you are not finding morels is that you are looking in the wrong habitats. Now, I know I didn't mention anything habitat related when telling you that you need to spend a lot of time looking for morels. And I did that intentionally because if you're just starting out and you are lacking basic ecological knowledge, then it's very important that you explore a wide variety of different habitats, noticing the similarities and the differences between these different habitats, regardless of whether or not you find morels. And then when you eventually do find enough morels in separate locations, you will come to understand the similarities that characterize these distinct locations. Now, a good piece of advice when it comes to learning morel habitat requirements is to learn your trees. It's important to learn trees because morels typically grow in association with certain trees, and it's a lot easier to see trees than it is to see morels. So which trees are worth learning if you want to find morels? Well, here are 9 of them that, in my experiences, are associated with morels in the northeastern United States. And yes, plenty more tree associations exist, but I'm just going to simplify the list by mentioning these 9. American elm, slippery elm, apple, tulip poplar, sycamore, hickory, white ash, green ash, black cherry. What's interesting is that almost all of these trees grow in fertile soils that contain lots of nutrients. Many of these trees can be found in floodplains, on floodplain terraces, along streams, and on the slopes leading down into streams. So get into these areas and spend lots of time looking in these habitats. Keep in mind, however, that morels don't always abide by the strict rules that we create for them, and if you hunt enough morels long enough, you're going to encounter plenty of anomalous situations. You'll find morels under oaks, you'll find morels under maples, you'll find morels with seemingly no trees nearby, you'll find morels close to home. I know people who have spent weeks unsuccessfully looking in faraway wooded habitats with lots of elms and ashes and tulip poplar trees, only to come home and find prime morel mushrooms growing in their yard. The third reason you're not finding morels is that your timing is off. You could be in the perfect habitat, but if you're too early or too late, you're not going to find what you're looking for. In many cases, timing could be the only factor that determines whether you leave the woods with a full or empty basket. So morels, like many wild fungi, grow during a particular time of the year. Now, anyone can tell you that morels don't grow in August in western Pennsylvania, so obviously don't expect to find these mushrooms in August. But you will also hear that morels typically grow from late March through late May in western Pennsylvania. And while that's generally true, not all morel species grow from late March through late May. Some species appear early, some species appear mid to late season. I encourage you to not only learn the general time frame of morel activity in your region, but also learn the peak season for each morel species. And this peak season may only last for 3 weeks rather than for 3 entire months. Also, you'll want to pay attention to the phenology of the trees, the animals, and other mushroom species. And phenology refers to when certain things appear in a season. When you do find morels, notice who's blooming, notice who's singing, notice who's mating, and notice who's leafing out in the canopy. After you make these observations year after year after year, you'll be able to time your morel hunts more effectively. Having said that, it doesn't hurt to scout out potential hotspots early, let's say in January and February. Yes, the ground is too cold for morels to fruit in January and February, at least in my neck of the woods, but as long as you can identify trees, you can still discover and explore new areas in the off-season that may produce loads of morels when the ground warms up. The fourth reason you're not finding morels is that it's too dry. Mushrooms like moisture. They require moisture to fruit. Morels are no different. Without sufficient rainfall, morel fruiting body production can be inhibited. You could be looking at the perfect time. You could be looking at the perfect habitat. You could be looking in a spot that, for the past 5 years, produced lots of morel mushrooms, but you're currently seeing nothing underneath your feet. It's no fault of your own. It's just that no rain has fallen in 3 weeks, and this alone can really slow down the mushroom season. Now, not all hope is lost in dry years, because ever since I started looking for morels many years ago, I've found morels every single season. There hasn't been a single season where I haven't found any. Every year I found at least a few, and usually many more. You just have to look a lot harder and perhaps explore wetter areas when conditions are generally dry. The fifth reason you're not finding morels is that you haven't developed a search image for morels. Morels are masters of evasion. They blend in extremely well with the surrounding environment. You could be looking directly at a morel mushroom and not even realize it because it doesn't reveal itself too easily to human eyes. However, once you develop a search image for morels, and once you tune your eyes to their subtle yet characteristic colors, and also to their particular shapes and textures, all of a sudden they start popping out from the landscape. And before you know it, you're looking at a dozen morels right in front of you. And I remember being taught this many years ago when I was first learning how to hunt morels. I was told that once you see one morel on the ground in front of you, you want to burn that image into your mind and try to look past every other thing on the ground that isn't a morel mushroom so that all you see are morel mushrooms. Once you can do that, you'd be surprised at how fast you can pick them out among the seemingly infinite number of other things that are around you. And the sixth reason you're not finding morels is that someone else beat you to them. As much as you may want to believe that you're the only person out in the woods hunting morels, it's simply not true. Every year, more and more people search for morels, and every year, more and more morels are harvested. If you're not finding any morels in a particular location, it's possible that someone took them all before you could get there. Now keep in mind that someone doesn't always mean a human someone. It could be an animal or insect someone as well. Many animals are known to eat morels, and while mammals are certainly included in that list, of all the creatures in the animal kingdom, I typically find that insects are the most active consumers of morels. Now back to the topic of human harvesting, I should probably clarify my stance on harvesting every single morel in sight. The scant research that exists on the topic of mushroom harvesting and sustainability suggests that harvesting mushrooms, either by cutting or pulling them, has little impact on future yields. So even if every single morel is harvested, theoretically speaking, it's possible that next year, just as many morels will fruit. Now, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I don't recommend harvesting every single mushroom in a given area. And I know it's not a popular recommendation or perspective to have, but we really can't possibly believe that we're the only reason that mushrooms exist. They have their own motives, they have their own agendas, and countless other organisms and systems in nature rely on morel fruiting bodies. Now some people say, well, I do pick every single mushroom in the woods, but I'm also helping by dispersing the spores and helping with propagation by carrying these mushrooms around in my mesh bag. And while it's very kind of you to do that, it really is, and while I guess it's superficially true, there are plenty of other ways that you can help that involve just a bit more thought and a bit more intention, including donating your money to land conservation trusts. And I don't mean a few of your dollars, I mean a lot of your money. You can pick up trash, you can plant native plants, you can absolutely refuse to purchase anything with your own dollars that's sprayed with glyphosate. You can teach rather than brag, and you can give rather than take. It's an unachieved sentiment to believe that your actions result in no long-term consequences. It's a more achieved sentiment to believe that everything you do matters. If the old adage is true, give and you shall receive, then perhaps you're not finding what you want to find because you're not giving what you need to give. And I don't just mean finding morel mushrooms, I mean finding what's most important in life. Just something to think about the next time we decide to harvest without any desire to intentionally reciprocate. So there you have it, 6 reasons you cannot find morel mushrooms. Now certainly this was not an exhaustive list. I'm sure you can rattle off 20 more reasons. If I had to add one more reason, I'd probably add you can't find morels because they just don't grow where you live. Yes, morels grow in many parts of the world, but they don't grow everywhere. Perhaps your climate, your soil, your elevation, or some other factor precludes morels from growing in your general region. If that's the case, don't worry. Despite what mushroom hunters want you to believe, there's more to life than morel mushrooms. Learn a wildflower, learn a bird, learn a tree, learn a new edible plant. There will never be a shortage of things to excite and to inspire you outside. Thanks so much for watching this video. I truly appreciate it. If you want to support Learn Your Land, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also head on over to learnyourland.com and sign up for the email newsletter. And if you are on social media, you can give Learn Your Land a follow on Instagram and on Facebook. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you on the next video.